Howdy, Kanaju from the future here. Now, before I begin this next episode, I need to put a quick disclaimer. This was recorded on the weekend after Frontiers released, and we didn't have any news about the upcoming Expedition 3, which I believe by the time you're watching this, it will already be available to play, so keep that in mind. I'd also like to apologize for the audio quality. We recorded this in-game, and I was using a pair of headphone mics that do not sound as good as this one, but look forward to more content with a better mic coming soon. But until then, please enjoy this extra special episode of the podcast. Howdy, welcome to the Deep Space Travel Break, your source for No Man's Sky news and reviews. Today we have a very special episode, not only because we're covering the latest Frontiers update, but also because for the first time ever, I am joined by a guest. Please welcome to the show, Walker.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I've never hosted a podcast before. So, bear with me. You are now a co-host. You're along for the ride.
Don't worry, I'm up to the task. You can lean on me. It's all good. Lean on each other.
And we are broadcasting live. Not live. We are broadcasting from planet Sandu in the beautiful Euclid galaxy. This is Vy'keen-controlled space, is it not?
It is.
If I turn the camera, wow, this place is really hopping. So tell me, Walker,
what's up?
How long have you been playing No Man's Sky?
Oh my gosh, I've been playing No Man's Sky since day one, like midnight release. I was, I am a massive fan.
Oh wow!
At least at first, I definitely I anticipated the game so much. I read every scrap of information, watched every video, every interview, anything I could to get anything I could about the game, learn anything I could. I was very much anticipating this game, and I enjoyed it when it came out.
That's cool. I guess you've been playing longer than me because I didn't get the game until after work on day one. So
maybe slightly. Although I think you have more hours on the game than I do.
Hard to say. But thank you so much for agreeing to join me. It's a big topic we're covering today, Frontiers. I could do it alone, but it would not be half as well executed as it would be with your help. Hopefully, yeah. I think it'll be good to have another perspective because this is such an interesting update they've given us this week.
Yeah, it is extremely interesting, very unexpected, if I may use that word. And I mean, I can't wait to get into it.
So, to speak to unexpected, how did you do with your predictions, with what you thought Frontiers might mean?
Oh my gosh, I never would have suspected that it would have been anything like this. This was so not on my radar at all. I was thinking, of course I wanted something like a combat update, but it wasn't like I wasn't putting a bet on that or anything. But I was expecting. I don't know if I had anything specific in mind, but there are certain things that I would have been like, oh, I think that makes sense. I could see that being what they were going to do. But this was like, whoa, what? This is what we're doing now? I mean, I'm all right with it, but this is totally unexpected.
Yeah, same here. I mean, part of me thought we might get some kind of, not necessarily settlements, but for me, I thought we would definitely get something to do with the space station cores. And I thought maybe that would be similar to this, where it's like you're managing a small procedural trade network, within the space station, and you might make decisions or be able to make some, passive money. But this is way more in-depth than I thought it would go. And that's really exciting. I mean, I pretty much got all of my predictions wrong. Um, I think
Yeah.
most people did actually. I'm just glad I didn't. I didn't report on any of the leaks because those were pretty much all all wrong. They were talking about waterfalls and and all this random
Yeah.
stuff.
And oh man, that would have been great to have waterfalls, but at the same time, I feel like there's so much potential in what they decided to do. And at the same time, there is a certain, anticipation you have with these updates because they have such a reputation for the unexpected, doing things that you wouldn't expect or things that you're not sure that you even wanted until they gave it to you.
Yeah, that's true. And usually when it is a surprise, it's something that I didn't want actually, but ends up being really cool. Like believe it or not, I didn't really want multiplayer in the game like at release. I really liked it as like a solo exploration. I didn't want people messing with my bases. I didn't want people shooting me in the back or messing with terrain
Yeah.
manipulators, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah.
But
That's a good
actually,
point.
I mean, and you remember because you and I played Next for hours and hours and hours when it came out.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the multiplayer ended up being a really central part of the experience. And that's just happened several times over where they release something, I'm like, huh, not what I would have added. But, I enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up my feelings on it as well. I mean, yeah, like I don't know if we want to get into this quite yet, but like Expedition One, that when that came out, it wasn't something that I was very much looking forward to. I thought, I'll give it a shot because it sounds interesting. But when I saw it, I was almost a little disappointed. It didn't really feel like an addition. It just seemed like another way to play what was already in the game. But that ended up being the beauty of it. There's things in the game that I didn't quite get to experience in a way that the developers had framed. When I got that kind of curated experience, it was very enjoyable. So I think they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I felt the same way. That was Expedition 1 was surprisingly entertaining.
Yeah.
And just really satisfying as like a gameplay progression loop. Like constantly giving you new slots, giving you new tech, upgraded ships. So you felt like even if you did something really grindy, at the end of it you would get a worthwhile reward. So that was a lot of fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
And and to almost to the opposite extent, Expedition 2, which was so short, was satisfying in that you were just constantly getting through those milestones. Like every 2 minutes, you were accomplishing something.
That you're right. That was pretty satisfying. And then you could totally multitask. You could be doing one. You could try to get one badge, but you're like, hey, I looked into the future phases and I noticed that this is also a thing, so I'm just going to get this done at the same time. It all just kind of harmonized really well, I think, in that respect.
Yeah, it rewarded exploration. It rewarded planning ahead. Yeah, it was a really good update. Um, but today we're gonna get into the Frontiers update.
Right.
So, Frontiers added most notably settlements, frontier towns, which procedurally generated. Every building within the town is procedurally generated inside and out, so that they're all unique. There are three styles of architecture, which coincide with each type of material. And as far as I can tell, I mean, a lot of this we're still finding out because it just came out. But as far as I can tell, each style is associated with one of the three races. So the Viking have these wonderful stone structures that look like Tatooine from Star Wars. The Gek have these just luxurious wooden and glass structures, which I think are the coziest. And the Korvax have these. I know a lot of people like them, but I would say these depressing, oppressive metal cages with no
Yeah.
light, no lights, no windows. Just very sad.
It is very sad. I mean, it feels like you're in a steel prison, and at least, and there's one particular structure I have in mind when you're in that thing. It's like you just don't want to be in there for very long.
Yeah.
But they do look appealing from the outside, I can say.
Yeah, it is pretty
At least,
cyberpunk.
yeah.
So you and I have both taken some time since the update released a few days ago. We've both established settlements on the same planet, actually, planet Sand
Yes.
Dune.
Yes,
So
exactly.
tell me about your experience setting up your first settlement.
Oh man, I feel like I kind of have to start with the beginning because again, this wasn't an update that I really wanted, but I ended up actually quite enjoying. You know, the way it happened, as you know, you were there, but just for those who wouldn't know, um, I I wasn't very interested, but seeing you build up your settlement and you finding out later and informing me that more than one settlement can exist on a planet, when that thought occurred to me, hey, maybe there's another settlement on this planet somewhere, that immediately spurred me. Wow, we could actually build like kind of an interesting network, on this planet and kind of and build up its backstory and all those thoughts that really kind of intrigued me. And then when we did find a settlement, which oddly we found very quickly, you know, it was a really cool looking town, like the way it was, the location, and the way it was just set up by default. And I kind of thought like, hey, here's the attributes that I think I want to have in my settlement as opposed to yours. That way we can have our own character to our respective towns. And when I got started, it's very automatic. That you're not really. I mean, I don't know if you'll agree with this statement, but you're not very deeply involved with the ongoings. You can check a lot of the statistics and you do make decisions, but it is somewhat autonomous as well, which is nice in the sense that you don't feel stuck to the planet. That was something I was really worried about initially, that you really feel stuck to the planet and that you couldn't feel like you could just be a nomad, because I love being a nomad in this universe. I love flying around. I love getting into trouble and out of trouble. But I felt like it's been very comfortable experience. Everything works pretty well, and it's incredibly exciting to see those structures get constructed.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's really cool that the settlements sort of exist on their own, and the idea is that you're just some guy who helped them out of like a little bit of trouble, and it's like, hey, it's like, we don't really have a mayor or an overseer, whatever. Maybe he just quit or they ran him out of town. It's like, would you like to, take over?
Yeah.
And it's not
Yeah.
like ruling with an iron fist. Like, you don't suddenly become like the owner of this town and all these people are your property or anything crazy like that. Luckily, it's more of a responsibility, but not in like in a heavy sense. Just in that
Right.
you get to make decisions, and they're sort of looking to you for advice. They're asking, should we build a water tower or a casino? you know,
Yeah.
and hopefully you make the right decision.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I found very enjoyable about it. That you could make wrong decisions and you could be irresponsible, because I think when I saw how already know what I'm gonna say. When I saw how thoughtful you were being with your setup, it just of course made me think, I kind of want to counter this. Not of course to insult you or anything like that, but just because I feel like the character of my town, I'd like it to be almost irresponsible, or more of a party city rather than a place that was meant to really be overly inhabited and functional, for better or for worse. But I just thought that thought was really funny, so that's kind of the underlying philosophy of my town.
So, would you like to give me a tour of your town?
Oh, absolutely. For those who possibly haven't surmised, we are already in the cantina. Let me go ahead and stand up here and hopefully not fly into the ceiling.
Sorry, my camera. Oh boy.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to jet back up there, unfortunately. Well, yeah, this is my cantina, and it is located, in Port Sandoon. That is the name of my settlement,
Nice.
and I can tell you right now that everyone's mood every Vikings mood in this town very much increased or improved rather, when I put this thing down, when it was finally constructed. It was a lot of construction. When this guy moves out of the way, we can exit the building. But all right, I'm just gonna walk through here. That's another thing. I know that NPCs aren't exactly located in the same places when we.
Yeah, there was no one blocking the door on my screen, but.
Yeah, I had that suspicion. But look how beautiful the structure is. Make sure to show that.
Oh yeah.
I really love the design. It's technically called a saloon, but we are Star Wars fans, so I'm going to be referring to it as a cantina.
Well, funny thing is, when I got the chance to build mine, it presented it as a dance hall, which I thought was interesting.
That is interesting. Perhaps there are, there are different versions of kind of a lounge, that you can, spend, time in for enjoyment purposes. I suppose there are different ones. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the cantina. There are at least a couple of large houses here, such as this one. Not all the staircases make sense. This is going to be, kind of a theme. We are all subject
generation
to the mercy of RNG.
Yeah.
But it looks okay from the outside.
It does look good, though. It really does.
Yeah,
all this detail.
It does look good. I almost don't mind it because it is dynamic enough. If it was just a box, which I feel like it would have looked like if that staircase wasn't there, then it wouldn't have been nearly as appealing.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of unnecessary elements, this balcony up here that you can't.
Hey, these are only meant for people who have jetpacks. That's the idea. You see, these are the private server rooms where they're very safely kept and protected. We make sure that security stays tight around these parts. But look at this. I love the details. Like, I love how there's a little wind gauge here. You have this little satellite. I love all the moving parts, that you see. And there's all these kind of details, throughout the settlements and the way that they're designed. Over here we have the market. I love the way this looks. Oh my gosh, you see this?
Oh, it's so cool.
I mean, there's so much going on here. I do wonder about this roof, though. I kind of want your take on this, because it honestly looks like they made an asset, and they're like, we could make this all converge to a point, or we could just, clip them into each other and have this interesting design. But I wonder, was it, what was the basis for it? Was it out of, laziness or art style? I don't know.
We'll call it art style, even though we know it was the same time.
Yeah, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Sure. I mean, it does look kind of cool, but...
Yeah, it does look kind of cool. Actually, I just noticed this, looking under this lamp. Are those supposed to be bugs? Those little red lights?
Yeah, isn't that nice?
I suppose insects are confirmed in No Man's Sky. They are canon now. We have insects. Over here we have a landing pad under construction.
Very good.
And for those of you who don't know, if you ever build a landing pad, be prepared to wait there for many, many hours, because they are very slow to construct, but totally worth it, because the effect of spacecraft flying in and out, it makes it look like such a cool, busy city. Gives that that Mos Eisley feel, which is of course what you want, and it's wonderful. But yeah, you have other big, large structures here. I really love the difference in size, that kind of dynamic there between the buildings, because it really does give a really nice effect. Like, when you're looking over it, you can just see, all these different structures, from one central point, and it really just gives it a really nice look. I feel like that effect makes it feel like the town is larger than it really is, and that is really important. at least for my immersion, because there's supposed to be a good number of citizens here, but I don't know if the capacity of these buildings would really fit the habitation. But and here is one of our factories, our industrial
Oh,
building styles.
what do you produce in here?
We mostly produce, a rubber, silicon,
Oh,
for
yeah, one of those. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
One of those
Yeah.
things. We're one of the biggest producers in the region, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. We're proud, to have such a large clientele for this material. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's go over here now. um, what I also love, the last thing, is, and every settlement has this central monument. It's kind of a focal point of every settlement, and I really love how, like, you just kind of have this. It almost makes you think that there is a backstory. There is something to this town, that it was established as some, either a place of commerce, a place of, respite, or, something or the other. And it makes you think, and it inspires you to think of and fill in those gaps of what you think this place could be. And it's very organic and, approachable as far as kind of building your own universe around your settlement. But that's basically Port Sand Dune. I don't, unless you have any specific questions about it, I think that's basically it.
Cool. I wanted to point out like the great details on this monument, because I love stone monuments. I love that they included like, an image of the Atlas as part of their pattern.
Yeah, which is very interesting, especially within the context of a Viking settlement. It's a video game, but I love to think about what the implications would be in universe, because of course they despise Sentinels, but the Sentinels are supposedly from the Atlas. So you wonder, what the Atlas means to them.
Well, to that end, let me go inside. I think it's on the interior details. By the way, this is a very nice building we have here.
Oh, thank you.
Where is it? I know I've seen it somewhere. There's maybe I'll see it at my settlement. There's a trim that looks like it has, oh, here it is, over on your cantina. If you look at the trim here, this also reminds me of like, Sentinels. Like the little Sentinel drones from the front.
Let me get over there. Hold on, I'm still getting over there. Okay, where? Oh, I see those. You're right. It kind of looks like you're staring into the front of it. Like, I guess it has. I totally see what you're saying. That is even more bizarre, frankly.
Yeah, considering how much they hate the Sentinels.
Exactly. That is very reminiscent. And, normally I would just look at that and think, it's probably not Sentinels. But after we looked at the Atlas trim, and the simplicity of the design there, it very much matches the same art style. At least from my perspective.
Mm-hmm. So, procedural generation, pretty good. I have to say, like, we saw some of what they could do with Desolation last year, right? With the interiors from the new derelict freighters, and I thought that was really impressive, creating sort of like a procedural dungeon, which is something they've really needed. And now they've built this system where they can not only generate like a procedural layout for each town, where it's not just like the same, buildings, like maybe they're in different places but on the same grid. Here they look like they're spread out in like completely different places. But on top of that, we have, completely different sizes and styles of buildings. The interiors can be very different. As you remember, we saw a couple of GEC structures in another system where they were just huge 3-story buildings that had all these interior staircases.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas most of our Viking ones are pretty much like the staircases are outside, and you can only get between floors by going back outside. Which, interesting choice. for these Viking
No.
architects.
Yeah, I mean, I can honestly say that, you are exposed to the elements in those moments. And if you are going to set up a settlement, you want to keep in the back of your mind that you want to try to find a place with weather that is, hospitable, at least to a certain degree. But I mean, if there's always planets that just look beautiful, and you have to get those planets, but you want to consider that as well, because you may be disappointed with the constant extreme storms, and which are just so prone to occur.
Hmm. Which, luckily, on this planet, Planet Sand Dune, not only is it very, very peaceful temperatures, there are no storms here. I've been here for hours and hours and hours. I think I put in like 30 hours since Frontiers dropped. Maybe, well, that includes like me not playing and just having the game on in the background, waiting for hours and hours and hours. But in all that
Right.
time, I have not had a single storm here. And additionally, there are no sentinels walking around. Like, this is an infrequent sentinel planet. So, yeah, that's definitely something to consider, because I know that was something that annoyed me a lot when I was base building, would be, storms, and they drop your frame rate, and it's hard to see things, and it's just really annoying overall. Um,
Yeah,
So picking a good
that would be
planet is
annoying.
definitely paramount. And to that end, if anyone listening to this hasn't found a settlement yet, a couple things I've learned is that planets can indeed have multiple settlements per planet. So if you find your perfect planet and the settlement you find is in like a really bad place, or it's really ugly, or you just don't like the layout, chances are you'll be able to find another one that you like better on that same planet. And hopefully, by the time this releases, patch 3.63 will be out, which I think is supposed to fix the settlement charts not working properly. So you can actually use those to find a settlement. Because I mean, we almost gave up on using those charts. They're completely useless at launch.
Yeah, that was a challenge, and that was a lot of navigation data wasted, frankly.
Yeah. And so, how do you think they did with this launch so far? Because, as you know, as someone who's played for years, normally day one, and even the first week or two, it's pretty rough after they release
Yeah.
one of these big updates. Like for me, Beyond was the worst offender, because it was broken until Synthesis came out. I pretty much couldn't play.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really annoying. Base building stuff was broken. I'd get a lot of crashes. Terrain would like pop in really badly in front of me. Um, Multiplayer was borked. I would crash going
Mm.
into the Nexus all the time. Just a bunch of problems. So when Synthesis came out and fixed everything, it was almost like I finally received the Beyond update. So that was a lot of fun. But how would you say Frontiers is doing compared to other updates?
Yeah. I actually, it's been kind of a roller coaster. I feel like it has, it initially it actually ran quite well. I mean, there was, because I'm playing on a PS4 Pro, so
Gotcha.
it's already kind of getting pushed to the limits, because it is they are moving to the next generation with some of these updates. I think they are now thinking with that in mind, rather than the last gen, which is what I'm using. And but initially, it actually ran quite well. I didn't really have many moments where I thought, oh, this is a bug. There was a few moments when I had suspected bugs, but you and I had come to realize that those were more like features instead of bugs. At least we could treat them that way. And but I mean, it wasn't until very recently that I started crashing quite a bit. But I also realized, though, if you kind of treat the game a certain way, you can keep it running smooth. You just don't be flying super fast, into a densely populated, area such as a settlement, with lots of objects, because that just might crash your game. It has for me. But I actually, and I feel like they, in addition to that, I want to add to this, that they've been very quick to put out updates on console. That is normally something that takes forever. But they were very quick. It was the very next day, and then the day after that, like patch to patch. They've been very good about it, and I've been very happy on that front.
Yeah, I would agree. They were always pretty good about patches on console, which even, and I'm not sure if it's because they're a small developer or if they're just willing to pay more for certification or what have you, but they get their patches out really fast. Especially like the experimental branch, they updated that I believe twice on the day of the actual update. So if you were on PC, you could actually get those fixes like within hours of launch. And even right now, as you and I are on version 3.62, people on PC on the experimental can play 3.63. And I saw a video earlier, or I watched part of a video. Shout out to Survival Bob. No, it was Craze Gaming, I think, that had he already had an S-Class settlement with the new patch, just because it made like the events more frequent. So,
Wow.
so for me, the game has been stable, right? I'm playing on a PS5, get good frame rates, um, pretty good pop in and detail. Like everything looks good for me, runs pretty smoothly. The only issue I've been having that really dulls my enjoyment is just how slow the timers are for everything. Like, and this is an anecdote I've heard from a bunch of people. When you first get your settlement, it's really exciting. You're getting like all these decisions, and you're building like your first overseer's office, and people are coming to you, and there's a visitor and all this fun stuff, and it's really cool, and I really enjoyed that. But then after that first day, you're kind of lucky to get like one thing a day, which is really annoying because I want to build up my settlement. And today, like, I pretty much had to decide whether or not to tax oxygen in my settlement, and I'm pretty sure that's going to count as the building opportunity for the day. So I almost don't expect to build anything today, and that's really frustrating. So that the patch that comes out hopefully Monday should fix that, make it more frequent. They say 15 minutes to 2 hours between encounters, which is better than what I assume to be 15 to 24 hours right now, if not more.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, and I would have to agree with you there that it is quite frustrating. I understand that they don't want you completing, everything that Frontiers has to offer very quickly. They kind of want to control the timing of it, but at the same time, if you want to put in the time, you know, and I think they should, give you that liberty. But, given that I don't know everything that it has to offer, I'm not gonna say anything officially, but that is my feeling.
yeah, but overall, I would say the game's been pretty solid for me. I do think they're encountering more and more trouble with some of the older consoles, and some of those leaks, which were obviously not correct at all. A
Yeah.
few of them mentioned that Hello Games was planning to end current gen support, I believe next year. Which, I mean, realistically, they could do that if the game gets too ambitious. But I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think they would end support, or do you think they would like split support? So like an update might come out, and maybe you'd get like the new base building system, right? But then you wouldn't get the new settlements. That would be for like PS5 and Series X
Right.
players. But then
Yeah.
again,
I think.
that seems
Go ahead.
difficult given how the universe is crossplay.
I think that would complicate things, if they tried to split it. I personally think, and this is as a last gen console player, I think given that they are a small studio, they will inevitably have to just stop supporting it. And I feel like quality would suffer if they really tried. And I would respect it if they tried because they want to keep the existing player base and to see supporting the previous consoles, they are going to lose a good amount of player base there because it hasn't exactly been easy to get to the next gen consoles. Now I know for our friends on PC, that's not really something that they're going to think about, but it is something that they're going to have to think about, Hello Games and consider. But I think that the most logical course, if I was a part of Hello Games, I would probably seek support. And I'm not happy to say that. That's not something I wanna say or I wanna admit, because I don't think I'm gonna be able to upgrade anytime soon. So, but that it would be my take on it. But I don't think we should put too much to any speculation. Ultimately they'll make the decision of what they think they can do, and if they think they can continue to support it, then great.
That's true. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that somehow they always pick, door C. We think they're going to do this, or some people think they'll do that, and they just don't do either of them. Like, prior to Origins, people thought, they're going to have to reset the universe if they ever want to add anything new. And then, because of that, people said, yes, they're going to reset it this year, and the other half said, no, they're not going to reset it because of all of our bases. And so what they ended up doing was half resetting it. You know what I mean? They figured out a way to add more planets. So I don't even know how many planets there are in the universe, since it used to be 18 quintillion, but they said they added billions, if not trillions, of new planets. So, maybe that's what they do if they're doing cross-browser or cross-platform support, is maybe they'll add like a new galaxy or something, right? And that one will feature new features and things that require bigger hardware. But all of the existing galaxies will still be available for those who want to, play with their friends. Who knows? Yeah, they'll probably do something crazy and unexpected. Knowing them.
Yeah, knowing them, for sure. I mean, that has always been their style. I think that you kind of framed it really well with the door C, which is that, they're always, kind of ahead of the game. They always kind of have, and I don't know how they structure it, whether it's a long-term plan or if they just come up with a solution on the spot, but they always seem to find a way to do what they want without sacrificing anything. Now, there has been some bumpy rides in my past. I had a beautiful planet before one of their updates, and it completely turned into a different planet. But, given what they've done, with the updates, it's like I don't even care. I'm good. I'm enjoying what they've done.
Yeah, and part of the fun of the game is, I've heard people complain about that before. Oh no, you turned my perfect planet with green trees into an ugly planet with brown trees. Oh, I want my money back. And I know I'm being really patronizing, but I'm sorry to all of you listeners who are like that. I'm sure you don't sound like that in real life. But if you do, that's great too.
I think you should.
But the thing is, this game is at its core about exploration. So as much as I would be really sad to lose even the settlement I've been building and all the bases I've built, if they gave me the option to reset all of that and to get a completely newly generated universe that uses completely new proc gen and just new systems that they couldn't just bolt onto the existing planets, that would require an entire reset because everything talks to each other and we're interdependent systems, I would probably give that up.
And there's so many options they could explore. They already have a system in place where you have to update your save, to experience the update. What they could do, if they wanted to support those who don't want the universe regenerated, is you could agree to update that particular save, or you could keep it with the old version, or you could have it to where you can copy it and have the old version if you want to go back and look at it, but update your new version.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like what Elite Dangerous did with Odyssey and Horizon.
That's true. I actually didn't even think about that. That's very similar to what they did.
Yeah.
Um, I gotta tell you though, I while it's daytime, it would be quite cool to go and check out how your town's doing.
Sure. Let's go. Beautiful town. By the way, Port Sandoon. So I guess Port Sandoon and where we're going now is the Oasis of Null. And I'm really sorry for my audio listeners. You're not going to get to experience some of this. We will try to describe it as well as we can. But they're sort of like sister cities. Oh, did I crash into you?
Yeah, you did. I just like turned over and I saw you heading straight towards me. But sorry, go on.
No. Yeah, so these are kind of like sister cities. We're kind of building our own canon for this planet.
Yeah.
So this is the Oasis of Null. Null being a famous Viking of the past. Sort of, his followers are sort of like outcasts from main Viking culture because most Vikings worship or follow the teachings of Herc. But the followers of Null sort of say that, he was actually a liar and the Atlas spoke to Null, not Herc, and there's this whole story to it that I'm sure we'll get into another time. But here I am at the Oasis of Null. I've landed outside the city limits. So I can give you a full tour. You can get the full experience. So traders would come in on this over this ridge and take this very, very short, we'll call it very short bridge across this chasm. Call it Kanaju's Crossing, where they're greeted by the imposing city gates, which are still loading in. It's
Stand
funny.
by.
Yeah, stand by. Well, the structure's all loaded in, but like the little details, I think Hello Games assumes like they're going to be much smaller, so they're kind of like the last thing to load in. But I scale them up so big that they're really noticeable when they're not there. And here we are, the Oasis of Null. Oh, I don't even know how to describe this. I'm too proud of it. Walker, can you describe it in a practical sense?
Absolutely. So this will be the best settlement you'll ever see. I'm just kidding.
It's gorgeous.
I also love it. So I'm not entirely unbiased. I really like what you did here. I feel like you have. I did ask you how you accomplished these trees. Are you going to divulge your secret, or shall we leave that in the realm of mystique?
Oh no, actually, yeah, this is a cool base building tip. So this whole this entrance that I have here in front, these landing pads, that teleport building, and then if you look over the ridge, I also have like, sorry, this is like a quick tour. A governor's palace, a lighthouse, a cliff house, and then over the cantina, I have all of these advertisements and billboards and water tower, bridge with another external landing pad, all of this. And normally you can't build a base within the city limits of a settlement. It'll give you a little notice, cannot build within settlement limits. And that's, for most things, you can't build. And even once you get outside the settlement, it'll tell you, like, this location's already been chosen. But if you get far enough out, maybe like 300 to 400 units, as close as you can get, once you get it to work, you can actually start building towards the city. So from what I understand, like the base building limits aren't exactly like centered around your base computer. As you build in one direction, it'll sort of like move your limits in that direction. So as I continued to build here, I was eventually able to build further and further into the settlement. And I was able to put in all these palm trees that I got from the Quicksilver Companion at the Anomaly. And I just think it gives it a really nice oasis feel. Differentiates it a little bit from Port Sandoon.
Yeah. You see, this is very nice and luxurious and comfortable, and mine is, well, it's something else.
Which is funny because yours is supposed to be the resort town, and this is supposed to be the.
Yeah, that was the idea. You went and showed me up now, but I think that was, you made a comment to me recently that has kind of reverberated in my mind a bit about how we kind of started off with these notions of what our settlements were going to be, but like over time they just kind of developed into their own things. They kind of have their own character. And, I started off with it being, I wanted it to be kind of like a Las Vegas kind of town and feel. But what it ended up being is more of kind of a Western, Mandalorian kind of experience, which isn't too far off from the Mos Eisley feel that I was originally envisioning when we decided to go with Viking settlements. Um, and I really love the ways yours has developed. I think that it is beautiful and was very creative what you decided to do. And you gotta talk about your cantina. You gotta say the name. You gotta talk about it. I love what you did with it.
So this is the Cavern Club, because No Man's Sky decided to generate my cantina in the side of a cliff, like literally into the side of the cliff. I've had to go through, and I spent a lot of time digging this out, but pretty much half the interior was just completely buried underground, and you couldn't see the bar, you couldn't see half of it, and I was pretty heartbroken because during construction I couldn't use my terrain manipulator. But once the thing was actually finished building, I was able to use that and a geology cannon to sort of clear it out. So now what I end up with is, and luckily it was also built right next to this cave, so it wasn't just like the boring side of a mountain. It was right next to this cave, which leads all the way out here. So I actually turned it into like a nice like second entrance to the city, and called it the Cavern Club after the club that the Beatles used to play at, which also had those little not cubbies. What did you call those? Booths.
Booths?
Yeah, in the side. So I think it actually worked out quite nicely from a theme perspective. And then the big wall behind it, I was able to turn into like an advertising board. So it gives this like whole area of town like a different feeling, like it's its own district that's more commercial. And while we're on the topic of the Cavern Club, in here, and for audio listeners, I'll describe it. I have like a corner where we put up our rewards and trophies from the past two expeditions that Walker and I have gone on together. So we have a couple of the decals here with space for more. And in the corner, we have a little trophy stand with little trinkets commemorating the golden vector we got. I have this little human statue for the Beachhead expedition because they didn't really give us. I mean, they didn't give us like a little Normandy statue, which would have been cool. And then, of course, this little golden pioneers trophy, which I normally have really big, but I think it looks nice in the corner.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that was actually Walker's idea to put together this little corner, and I like the idea of like you go to the pub and you've got like all your accomplishments, on the walls, and you can drink to it. It's really nice.
Yeah,
Makes it feel like you're coming home to something.
Exactly, and when you're just kind of relaxing in your, in the Cavern Club, you can. That's when you reminisce. When you kind of just, of course, in lore, in Claire perspective, you kind of come and you think about those things, and then you could just look at the wall. I mean, I'm sort of being redundant with what you already said, but I just love that.
No, that's cool. I was just looking out the window, which also just happens to have a big window next to the bar that opens up into the cave itself. So you've got these amazing stalactites and stuff. It's sometimes procedural generation like gives you something really dumb, and then sometimes that really dumb thing ends up being really great. Like
I
as
think
dumb
it,
as it was
yeah.
being in the side of this cliff, it ended up giving me like a really cool themed establishment.
I totally agree. I mean, I would have been sad having gone back in time and it having spawned somewhere else, knowing what it was, what it is now. It would seem so underwhelming because it has character that other settlements are not gonna provide. It's just because it happened to spawn inside inside the cliff that you decided to do it the way you want. And I kind of want to, having this discussion kind of made me realize something. I kind of want to retract something I said earlier, at least in part, about how the settlements are mostly autonomous. You don't really do too much. Because I think this is evidence that you can do as much as you're willing to do, if you're a little creative.
Hmm.
I mean, because you've already done so much that would separate this settlement from other settlements. It makes it truly unique. And I'm really glad that the game had features that could supply that.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, I've tried to with before I put the trees here, I was trying not to build anything within the settlement itself, just kind of build around it, so that like whenever you're in the settlement, you luckily I have these big cliff walls that I can build on top of. So you just have like these buildings and things that you see in the background, like the cliff house and the lighthouse, that just sort of make you feel like you're in a bigger city than you actually are. Same with the trees, actually. They kind of obscure your sight lines a little bit and make you feel like there's more that you can't see. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I'm actually quite happy with the settlement system. I think there's a fair amount of variation, and they actually do feel like cities. Like the amount of details they put into things, even just like using these little pallets for sidewalks, similar to like an old West town. I think that's a really cool touch. Like hats off to the artists at Hello Games. Like they really outdid themselves with this update.
Yeah, it's actually a very good combination of rustic and sci-fi. You don't usually think of those two things together, um, but it just harmonizes so well. So I agree. Hats off.
I remember, and I love how they like try to make everything extra sci-fi. You've got like these tires, but they have like lights on them for some reason. And then you've got like these milk crates that are like literally like I don't know if you can see these, Walker, but like they're literally
Um,
milk crates. Like you can tell that they're meant to hold bottles or something there.
oh, you're
But
right. That is
but they
exactly
have
what
like
they
all these
are.
lights on them for some reason. You know what I mean? Like they're high
Yeah,
tech milk crates. It's just
They are electric milk crates.
yeah, for some reason there's like a battery in there or something powering that. And
yeah.
it's silly and it's kind of nonsensical, but I really love it. And I think that works for No Man's Sky, having things that are like almost too fantastical to make sense, but it feels right.
Yeah, and I mean, I actually love all those little details because it makes you wonder, or at least it makes me wonder, like in universe, what is the explanation for that? And I just love to speculate. It definitely inspires a lot of thought as to the purpose of this or that thing. Now, of course we all know that likely it was just a design choice because 70s sci-fi had a lot of lights. They kind of had, certain inspirations in real life, as well as, other sci-fi artists, to take from. But like, you know, of course there's the lights thing, but, I do love to think about, just how that technology would take form, what that would be used for. There's just a lot you can do with that.
Yeah. So, oh, one other part of the Frontiers update that I wanted to talk about was the overhaul to base building. So if you look on my screen, oh well, of course you're looking on my screen. Anyways, if I pull up the build menu here, it's an entirely new interface that sort of puts everything right in front of you. So instead of having to navigate through like this hierarchical, like uh, very detailed menu where you'd kind of have to know where you were going because you'd have to cycle through each one every time. Um, and I found it kind of cumbersome. As much as I enjoyed base building, which I built some pretty big things in the game, I think honestly this is an improvement in pretty much every way. You know, you can move things now instead of having to delete and create a new one. You can resize pretty easily. The colors are really clear for like recoloring, you know. And of course, they added like 250 new base parts. And speaking of which, these new base parts are gorgeous. Like, they just instantly make my builds more interesting. I really love the style. Additionally, they also automatically have power, it seems. Because you can place lights and stuff on them and they just work. Either that or like the new lights don't require power. Either way, I think the new base building parts are just really great. And they're actually not procedural, but context sensitive. So based on how tall you're building it, you know, the top and the bottom will take on different characteristics. For example, this top area and this bottom are actually the same wall piece, but the top one has a much smaller window than the bottom one does. Also has additional trim at the top. This has rock on the bottom. It's just really interesting how they were able to revamp base building in such a well executed way. I think it's just an improvement across the board, with the exception of I can't currently, like, you can now like free play stuff, so you don't have to snap it anymore. But they lost the ability to rotate like the, I don't know if it would be the Z or the Y axis, but I think that's the one thing people are requesting that they put back. Otherwise, I'd say this is pretty much like the perfect build menu for me. Have you had a chance to play with it at all, Walker?
Very briefly. I've been mostly focused with Frontiers, but I did get to play it with it a little bit. It takes a little bit of getting used to.
Definitely.
I will admit I didn't immediately warm up to it. It felt a bit more cumbersome, but it definitely lets you do a lot more. And after messing with it for, about 5 minutes, it became as natural as the original system.
Yeah. Once you sort of reprogram your mind with the new buttons and stuff, it allows you to do a lot more, I think, with the exception of course, the other rotation. But I'm sure they'll add that pretty soon. I think they just ran out of buttons, to be honest, because I was looking at the controller and it's like, there really isn't a button left for them to use. Maybe they could replace L2, because that's currently, like, it'll go through the different things you can build, cycle part. And I don't know how useful that is for some people. Like, I prefer just to go back to the menu and select the other part. So if they could change that to maybe, like, if you're holding L2, then R1 and L1 could, like, rotate the other axis. But
there are all sorts of options. I would be curious if that was the reason why they held it back. How, are they holding the PC platform back for that same reason? Because of course they do have an entire keyboard to play with.
That's a good point. Who knows? But I'm sure they'll improve that. Base building is one of the features they have been consistently updating over the past 5 years. And to that end, Walker, so Sean Murray said in a blog post that he was really excited for what the new systems in Frontiers allow them to do going forward. And some people have been looking at the game files, and it's really exciting because the way these settlements are generated, like, it's more procedural than it's ever been. It's not just like the same, like, 2 arrangements of like seatings placed everywhere. Like, yeah, there are some repeated elements, right? Some predefined things, but it's a lot more procedural than ever before. And a lot of people say they put in a lot of work to actually change some of the framework, the underlying framework, to allow for this kind of procedural generation. So what do you think they mean by exciting for what it allows them to do moving forward? Do you think they're talking about entirely new features, like procedural dungeons or procedural ruins? Or do you think they mean Frontiers, like, settlements as a thing moving forward. Like, oh, we're excited to add new buildings to settlements, new interactions, and to what's it called? Iterate on that versus like new features.
I
Sorry, that
have
was a
a kind of
mouthful.
no, that's perfectly fine. I have kind of a more conservative approach to these kinds of questions. I would personally make a short leap saying that at first they would likely just increase the number of encounters and and features, kind of that scale. But when you really look at the wider picture in the history, they haven't really followed that trend either. They haven't really. It's not like, okay, now we're gonna add, when they first added, those areas in the space stations where you see NPCs walking around. It hasn't changed too much since then what you can do and interact with them.
Mhm.
So with that, and of course you could see that as also being, a basis for something. And when you kind of look at the next leap from that, I feel like Frontiers is a good example because now we have locations on the ground where you just see NPCs walking around.
Mhm.
And you could say that was a very large, feature increase. So I think that is not off the table. Of course I want procedural dungeons and things like that. I would love that.
Yes,
I would love it
please.
so much, and I feel like everyone would love it. So why don't they do it? But what's funny about Hello Games is it's never been, their philosophy has never been about, hey, let's do what is most popular. It's always been about, what do we, the development team, want this game to be? What is our vision for this game? And they personally want something. It can be hey, let's make the ships bigger. Hey, let's add these like abandoned freighters that you can go explore that have procedural interiors. Or it can be, hey, let's, put placeable trees in the game. Let's put, food in the game. You can make food now.
Or
It's
the
not
bite
there.
beat. You
Yeah,
can make music now.
perfect,
Procedural
perfect
music.
example. Not all things that I would have expected. Some things are like, wow, that fits perfectly. Other things are like, I honestly feel like this was, kind of a guilty pleasure that they wanted to incorporate for their own personal enjoyment. I don't
Yeah.
know anyone who is asking for this. I'm not hating on it. It's not. It doesn't make the game worse. It's just another cool feature. Um,
Yeah.
and I really really appreciate all those things. But I think the bottom line is we just never know. I mean, I made a joke to you a while back that it's like, because we kept speculating so much, hey, maybe this is a combat update, but then it's like, the reality is they could be giving all the signs of this or that feature, and at the end of the day, we'll just get something like deck hairstyles. And I wouldn't complain. It's all free content. That's what you also got to remember. We are not paying for this content. You pay for the base game, and everything else is just given to you for free, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why, I mean, I never take it too personally when they don't have the thing I want. Because it's not like,
Yeah.
I mean, they've kind of earned a little bit of leeway to do whatever they like at this point. Um, and I think Sean's even stated that they found a good balance between adding things that players are asking for and adding things that they want to add.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think even Frontiers is a good mixture of that because for a long time people have been asking for larger settlements on planets, and people have been asking for like ways to like sort of manage a settlement. Not necessarily a settlement per se; it could be a space station or a freighter crew, but like to have more NPCs right under your command. And so I feel like this
Yeah.
sort of fits both of those. And Sean described it as like a missing piece of the sci-fi fantasy. And I think he's right about that too. Like you can tell they put a lot of passion into these towns, especially like when you look at like even the cantinas have their own style of procedural generation, and you can tell they were just totally inspired by the Mos Eisley Cantina, like shamelessly inspired by it. but that's great because it's what we all wanted. So personally, moving forward, I'm hoping they take this tech, and obviously, I'm with you. I'm hoping they do procedural dungeons. Um, I think even,
Yeah.
especially these stone structures, they're almost ready made to do procedural ruins with these. You know what I mean? You could have all kinds of traps and stuff like that, and then procedural loot at the end. Or it could be like the freighters, where it's just interiors, and maybe it's like a big, I don't know, block or something on a planet surface. Or
Yeah.
maybe it's underground, right? So you can't see the big block, so you don't know how big it is, and you enter through the
Right.
top or something. Um,
Yeah.
but I would
I
love stuff
never
like that.
even. That is such a good point. Perhaps that is why they went with freighters in the first place, so they wouldn't have to modify, the way that terrain, is generated, so they could kind of play with the procedural system without having to incorporate it, into the generation just quite yet, because that would be a lot more effort that would be required rather than just getting people straight into some sort of dungeon,
Yeah,
design. Yeah.
because even with like these settlements, they did regenerate the universe, but they had to clear huge pieces of land to fit these. So they obviously did change some of the generation regarding buildings and stuff. Um, so I mean, again, this has demonstrated they are able to add game-changing features to planets without resetting or regenerating them. The other thing I think would work really well, this would work really well for, um, are procedural space stations. I think that's something the game's been needing since day one. Because, I mean, it used to be there was almost no interior other than the space station, and they were the same on every single system. And with the latest core, the idea that you have a space station override core, it really gives the impression that you can take ownership of a space station. And considering like we now have these settlement mechanics, like it seems like they're primed and ready to give us some sort of space station update, because they could give us procedural interiors somewhere between this and desolation. They could give us like economics and decisions to make with a space station based on the settlements. Um, I personally think that's the next step they're going to take, simply because they already added the cores to the game. Uh, so they're kind of already
Right.
teasing us. But the other thing is, I kind of hope that they continue to improve settlements. Like, I hope it's not just they add this to the game, and once they've finished the patches for Frontiers and it's all functional. I hope they don't leave it where it is. Like, personally, you can see there's a lot of space left in the settlement. You know what I mean? Because right now they're gonna patch that in 2.63, but right now you can actually see where buildings are going to be placed because the grass is kind of cleared out of the way. There's like a big square
Yeah.
here, so you can tell a building's going to go here. But even
That
then, there's like,
is. Yeah.
yeah, they're going to patch that out. But there's a lot of space that isn't used. And I feel like they could use this in the future by introducing new building types. They might add like a theater or an arena or some other kind of new building or new encounters. Or maybe they make that like a player-controlled thing. Who knows what they're going to do with this? But I really hope that they don't leave settlements where they are. I hope they continue expanding it so that hopefully in the future there's more to do. Like, I hope they add like unique vendors or traders or people you can hire. Like, imagine if you went to another system and you met like an NPC and you could literally ask them to join your settlement. And if they joined your settlement, you'd get like a small stat boost and a unique vendor or something. That would be so cool.
Yeah.
And it would also give you, again, it would give you a reason to explore the universe. Even if you're like content settling down on this one planet, you would set back out just to find new people to join your settlement. Which would be really
That's
cool.
true. Like that would actually encourage exploration as well.
Yeah.
So that would
Or
work quite nicely.
imagine procedural loot, like you're looting an ancient ruin, right? And instead of finding like a base building part, you find something you can add to your settlement. You know what I mean? Like you
Wow.
find a
Yeah.
statue, and if you put the statue in your settlement, it like blesses it or something like that.
That would definitely kind of reinvigorate, like the ruins that you can, dig up. I think that would give a whole new purpose and it'd be very unique. It would add to kind of the culture of your settlement. I think that would also be really neat.
Yeah, I think there's like a whole lot more they could do with it. And if this is just Settlements 1.0, kind of like base building, they've really expanded it over the years, what it can do, what it can mean. I'm hoping they do the same for Settlements, where it's like they just continue to find new ways to integrate it with the rest of the game so that it doesn't feel like it's like just one side activity. It feels like almost like your base did originally, where it's like this is your home in the stars, and everything you do outside of the settlement you can use to benefit your settlement too, if you want to. I think that would
Yeah.
be really great.
And I mean, I think that that's not as far fetched as some people may be thinking because, if you just look at the succession of updates, you have like do me a favor and let's run down, the names. No, please, let's do it.
Sure. So day one patch, uh, it doesn't really count. Foundation update, added base building,
Yes.
and
Right.
freighters. And then Pathfinder added vehicles, more base building, base sharing, and class system like procedural classes and weapon and ship specialization.
Okay.
So that again, that expanded on pretty much all the existing mechanics at the time. And then Atlas
Yes.
Rises added mission boards, added story, um, regenerated the universe, added new biomes. Uh, what else did it add? Not sure actually. As far as like expand, well, okay, I actually have a 1 hour video coming out this Monday, covering
Yeah,
Atlas
this is
Rises.
just a very basic overview just to kind of demonstrate a point, and I
Yeah.
appreciate. Yeah.
But then, yeah, you're right. So then after that, we had Next. And Next
Yes.
completely expanded base building so that now you could build anywhere. You could have multiple bases. You could build on top of existing structures. Uh, um, and then what else did they expand it next? Multiplayer was expanded. We got basic multiplayer in Atlas Rises, and they expanded that. They regenerated space stations, so they function the same and they still look pretty much the same, but now they had like actual vendors. You know what I mean? And they've been adding to those
Yes.
vendors over time. Um, what else did they add in next? A bunch of stuff, but sorry to keep it moving. Abyss completely expanded oceans, added unique materials, unique recipes, unique loot, actually, um, because they had. Oh yeah, procedural loot was added next, right? Like if you were digging stuff up, I think. Um,
Well,
so they added
that's okay.
procedural loot.
Like, I get the idea of what you're saying.
Okay, and then visions was also Visions actually kind of added what I'm talking about because they added those treasures you could pick up from the exotic biomes. So if you visited like a biome with those big spinning machines, you could actually pick one of them up and bring it back to your base. And the only way you could get those was to explore those types of planets, as well as, of course, procedural loot and archaeology. And then Beyond, ooh boy, Beyond. But Beyond actually added a lot of stuff. It added procedural. It gave NPCs the ability to walk, and then it put them onto planets, right? So now you could find them walking, going for a nature hike, or walking outside their small outpost or whatever, or walking around space stations. Um, Synthesis. That was mainly a quality of life update, but we could scrap ships now. What else came after that? Oh,
Um,
living ships. That was a big one.
yeah.
That's where they
Yes.
finally expanded space. So now there were suddenly points of interest in space, which amazing that it took them that long, considering it's a space game.
Yeah.
But that's good. And of course, like a new ship type, new storyline, all that stuff.
Yeah.
After that was Exomech, which just literally added an Exomech. I wouldn't say it expanded um, vehicles that much. It was supposed to be kind of the vehicle update, the exocraft update, but it kind of made them a little worse in my opinion because they lost their hazard protection.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Desolation, which added procedural freighters, um, which I still consider one of my favorite updates, like top 4 probably, maybe top 5.
Yes.
And that added, I mean, you've been through those. Those are really cool. And like to this day, whenever I get around to doing another one, I still see stuff I haven't seen before. And there are a bunch of things that I've only seen once, like entire like room types I've only seen once, that are really interesting. And those, another thing they should expand is they need to add like, I know people won't be happy about this, but they should add like bosses to some of them, like a big mother infested thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Oh, sorry. Origins. Geez, that's Origins added a bunch, regenerated everything, new planets, archive buildings, new weather. Geez, added a bunch of stuff. What came after Origins? Next Gen. That was mostly quality of life. And then this year, Companions, which added Companions. Expeditions, which added Expeditions. Prisms, which regenerated caves and gave us like a graphical overhaul. And then here, Frontiers, which added settlement.
I feel like the spirit of Expeditions was definitely kind of woke me up that, hey, like I think about Expedition 1, which is the Pioneer Expedition.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that we are going out into uncharted territory, and there was a lot of, there was base building involved and stuff of that nature. And then you have things, and then of course, then you have, after that you have Beachhead, which kind of further extends that theme that there is kind of an offshore, civilization expansion. And then they topped it off with the next big update being Frontier, which explains that now that you have that beachhead, you could say, you are now kind of establishing yourself as a civilization kind of in the frontier, in no man's land or no man's sky. But the point is that there seems to be recently a development, a running theme of an expansion of player built civilization. So what that makes me feel is that perhaps after Frontier, there will be something possibly after that keeps with that theme, but goes even further. I don't know what form that would take. I don't know what their plan is, and perhaps I'm completely off base. But that does seem to be something that we can, actually look to, since it has been a running theme for at least, 3 consecutive, community updates. Now, of course, expeditions are minor compared to something such as Frontiers. But I mean, it is an interesting succession of thoughts there.
And it's interesting that you bring up Expedition because I completely forgot. The other half of this update is that they're actually adding Expedition 3. Like, it's in the game files. You've been to the Nexus and you've seen the rewards that are already there.
Yeah.
And so basically, from what I've read and what the rewards say and what the patch notes say, is it seems like the third expedition, strangely enough, I wonder if it'll have anything to do with settlements, but it seems to be about escaping a planet, like a single planet. What do you think about that?
I think that it'll be very interesting, because if they have all the players on the same planet, which they may or may not do, part of the expeditions is that a lot of people are in the same areas. If you've played them, that is just commonly what occurs, because they choose very specific places. That would mean that there's going to be a lot of player activity, within a very small space relatively to, of course, the universe size, universe in No Man's Sky. So that does kind of lend itself to the idea, possibly, that there's going to be, in a way, organically a colonization of that planet, possibly. But if we are escaping it, then that kind of lends itself to a different theme that you could explore. Because what exactly are we escaping? It's not like we're leaving. By simply leaving, there is something there. Do you mind if I touch on an award or like a reward?
Sure, go for it. Okay. I guess spoiler alert, but I mean, you can view these right now in the anomaly.
Yes. There is, there does appear to be, it appears to be a sort of pet. There are these creatures. I believe it is, it looks a lot like the biological horror that you have to fight when you break open those eggs outside of abandoned buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like you can have it as an actual pet, or perhaps some sort of companion that is, in a different respect. I don't exactly know what your relationship is, to the creature. But that seems to be their war. So what that implies to me is perhaps we will be on an infected planet that'll be quite hostile, to players, and that is something to consider. So possibly not colonization, because that evidence doesn't really support my overarching theory, but it is interesting. It continues to make me question where they're going with all of this, because it does appear to be cohesive, but every update seems so unexpected. So, forgive me, random.
No, that's interesting. I actually hadn't even made that connection, but you're right. If we're getting a monstrous companion, is what I think it's called, then we could be on an infected planet. The ones that they added in Origins.
Yeah.
And that could be why we're trying to escape it. But you also brought up another interesting point, which is every player does start on the same planet in Expedition. And I think in the description they actually gave us the name of the planet. I forget what it is. But normally you get off as fast as you can and move on. But in this one it sounds like we're going to be stuck there for most of the time. So I wonder how they're going to handle that with quite literally hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of players all on the same planet. I wonder what would happen if everyone placed a base or something,
Yeah.
Since I think base building is going to be part of this expedition, like some kind of shelter. Unless they disable it, but I don't know.
They very well might disable it. I do remember, it is possible that they might try something new with this. Like, perhaps this is kind of a beta for what the network can actually handle. And I have no reason to base this. This is complete speculation, but
oh yeah, we're in speculation territory for sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to state that, because if I was listening to this, I would be thinking, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But I'm really, my thought here that this would be an opportunity to test how the universe or this planet would actually perform with people in mass colonizing it, putting base computers down and controlling this or that plot of land, and everyone building things. An expedition isn't a full update, and based off the rewards, it doesn't appear to be a very large one. So it's like, if they wanted to take that opportunity to push the limits and see where they can go with this, because, we have these magnificent settlements that can be expanded and other people can visit them. Of course, we all dream of, a cyberpunk-esque city, with huge skyscrapers, bright lights, ships flying around, freighters, like docking with space elevators, of course
dude.
We dream of those things, but, they, of course, need to, if they're ever going to add anything like that, and maybe they have no desire to, but they should at least do their due diligence and see what is actually possible with the current player base's hardware. Um, so that is a possibility, but of course, it is all speculation.
That's an interesting idea, actually, using it as a stress test. Do you
Yes.
think some people speculate originally this was supposed to come out, they think back in, I think, July, mid July, and sort of lead to the anniversary update? That's what people thought. I mean, obviously, Hello Games didn't announce that. But
Yeah.
do you think that this could be leading to another feature? Like, do you think at the end of it, it's going to be like a bait and switch, like Beachhead, where they actually change the icon and change the rewards, and actually, it's a brand new feature that you get at the end of it? Or do you think it's going to be just pretty much what they've told us it's going to be? Regular expedition, escape a planet, get a monstrous companion at the end, and a sticker.
Well, may I ask you this question? Because, yeah, I want to answer your question, but I just need a little bit more data.
Then
It,
sure.
with Expedition 2, did they have awards already posted at the Quicksilver station?
I want to say no, but I know they were data mined ahead of time, and the ones that were data mined actually were removed from the game and were replaced with the Normandy.
Okay, well that is interesting. Perhaps they kind
So
of
because they
yeah.
they do know people data mine like immediately, so they've gotten to a point where now they just put in fake things to throw us off. Um, so I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled it again, but again, I have no idea what they would add if they did. I mean, you and I didn't see the Normandy coming, so.
No, that was just completely a surprise. I mean, sure, it's in the same genre, but I mean, that is just not a crossover that I would ever see happening. But it happened, and it's awesome. It's great. And it's a beautiful frigate. I love that idea, and it really makes me want other crossovers to happen. I wish, you know, I do not mean to criticize, the wonderful business that is Disney, but if they were a little looser with their licenses, I would be very happy. I mean, I want to see the Millennium Falcon in this game. I mean, come on. But, getting back to kind of what you were saying, I feel like the pattern, they could very well do that. They could replace it. I'm not entirely sure because they didn't. You said they were data mined, and that is possible. These might literally just be a bait and switch. They might have put these things on there just to switch it out. And it wouldn't be hard because the biological horror, which is a monstrous companion of some sorts, it's already an asset. They wouldn't even have to put work into it.
Well,
So
that's
they
the
easily
thing,
could have.
because
Yeah.
for Pioneers, obviously the sticker is it's kind of like the Atlas Rises artwork, but recolored. But it looked pretty cool, right? But then we had Beachhead Expedition, and the icon didn't seem to have anything to do with it, right? It was just like a big dreadnought class freighter, and people were
Yes.
wondering like, well, what does that have to do with Beachhead? And turns out it had nothing to do with Beachhead. And now
Yeah.
this one, the sticker for the new one is like the Atlas in front of a planet. And from what I can tell, this doesn't seem to have anything to do with an Atlas. Maybe maybe the last stop is like you have to go to an Atlas interface or something. But I'm hoping either it actually has something to do with the Atlas lore, and we'll get a little bit more of that, or maybe it is a bait and switch, and they'll replace it with the actual relevant thing. I mean, I'm not counting on it. Obviously, we should not set any expectations,
Yeah.
but I mean, either of those scenarios sounds cool. Or, of course, scenario C, which is it actually has nothing to do with an Atlas, but that's the sticker anyway.
Yeah, I don't think they're, above just doing something because they think it's cool. I think they've demonstrated that, you know, that that impulse, in the past. But, I feel like no matter what scenario, just to kind of echo what you were saying, that any scenario that they go with, I will be okay with. Um, you know, if it's not a bait and switch, I am very curious at what the evidence, the direction that the evidence is pointing in, and see how they accomplish that. If it is a bait and switch, well, man, that's an exciting notion. I really hope that it's at least as cool as what they currently have, be seen to be planned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, you know, in what they're doing so far, there's just so much, there's just so much that can be done with this. Like at the very least, if they have settlements on this planet that we're all going to be on, it would be cool just to see a bunch of players walking around a settlement. Just little things like that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because these settlements, they're not very high impact. Or these settlements, these expeditions aren't very high impact. Excuse me. That first expedition was a bit of a grindathon in some respects, but still enjoyable. But this one doesn't seem like it's going to be quite as long. Um, but whatever they do, I will be happy. But I'm definitely gonna stay on the edge of my seat for this one.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I'm pretty sure I'll enjoy whatever they come up with. Um, yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything there is to do with Frontiers. I mean, we could obviously speculate for hours, but
Yeah.
I do eventually have to end this podcast. So, do you
Yeah.
have anything else you want to cover before we get going?
Um. The I mean, there. I totally just have to geek out on some of these textures. Did you show the? Did you do a close up of the rugs?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll do that. That's a good idea.
but I'm good.
I'm
I have
playing
nothing
mode.
else I would really want to discuss.
Let me get a photo mode close up. Ooh, ah.
Look how good that looks.
I love these rugs. And
Yeah.
all the textures really. I mean, just the little details even between these tiles. Very nice.
Yeah. But
And
other
actually, I
than that,
discovered a
yeah.
new detail up on the roof. They also use that Atlas texture.
Really?
And it's in like the hardest place to see. It's literally on top of these dome ones. If you look around the edges, it's also the Atlas texture, like down here. Look, the
Oh,
green
did I
part.
push you?
Now, do
Oh,
you see it?
yeah, you're right. I
So, like, I
see
didn't
that.
notice that before. There's a lot of
Yeah,
great
that
detail.
is quite hard to spot. It just looks kind of like a rough texture, until you get up to it and you realize that there are actual carvings there. I love that detail. You just wouldn't expect it in a procedurally generated game, but there it is.
Yeah. Um, oh, there's the Sentinel again. Really cool. I love these buildings too much. And I love this update. I'm looking forward to diving in and fully building out my city, seeing how big it can get. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wanna see the S-class variation of it.
Yeah. And hopefully in the future they allow us to have more than one settlement so that we could try out like a Gek and a Korvax one. Because it'd be
Yeah,
cool just to
I
see the
agree.
differences.
That would be something I'd love to do as well.
But all right, I guess that's it for what is this, episode 5 of the Deep Space Travel Break. um, thanks, Walker, for joining me. Actually, let's meet up so we can say goodbye together. Let's meet
You're
at the
right.
town
You're right. We
center.
should.
I don't have a HUD, so I don't know where
Absolutely.
you are.
Um,
Meet me at the big
I am
stone monument.
inbound. All right, I'm here.
Hello. All right. Well,
Whoa.
you've been a great guest. Thanks for agreeing to do this with me. I think this has been an
Absolutely.
extra stuffed episode. It's what is this running? About an hour 45 or so. Jeez, it's gonna take forever to
Yeah.
upload. Oh, hello, sir. Yeah.
But by the
But
time that anyone sees this, it will be uploaded. So enjoy.
and probably outdated. Patch 3.64 is going to add completely overhaul settlements. It's the settlement overhaul update. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. Well, thanks for joining me, and thank you to the listeners. If you made it this far, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to us ramble about No Man's Sky for 2 hours, as usual. Hopefully,
yeah.
hopefully we offered something new, a new perspective or ideas you hadn't heard before. Sorry, I interrupted you, Walker.
No, I was just going to say, at the very least, thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
I know we can't hear you, but I feel like you're there, and I'm glad to have, you around, as well as, you or your friends, or, however many of you are listening to this, just, come and hang out with us, sometime.
Yeah. And to that end, make sure you leave a like on this video, because if you made it this far, I'm guessing you liked it. I mean, maybe you hated it and you just wanted to make sure we didn't say anything intelligent before you ripped us a new one in the comments. But
Yes, exactly. And that is impressive in its own right. I respect your commitment.
In that case, actually, leave us a dislike.
Yes.
But yeah, leave us a like or dislike, and subscribe to the channel, because now that Frontiers is out and they didn't reset the universe or anything, I am moving forward on a bunch of new videos. The first of which should be live by the time this is out, is I'm doing a whole series where I'm reviewing and ranking every update in No Man's Sky, including the day 1 patch. So episode 1, it's about an hour long, and it just covers 2016 and 2017. So day 1 patch up to Atlas Rises. And I would love if you gave that a watch. I think it's pretty good. I think it's going to be a really cool series. And like right now is the time to offer me feedback, so that the future ones I can kind of improve the formatting if I need to. But yeah, thanks again for supporting the channel. Anything you want to add, Walker, before we sign out?
I mean, I think you said it all. I think you put it quite well. I mean, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Cool. All right, well, I think that's it. Walker, you're under attack! Look out!
Oh my gosh!
It's actually hurting me.
Oh, really? It's these S-Class upgrades. Oh, shit!
Oh, you better be careful.
No, I was trying to do this. My HUD is down. I didn't know what I equipped. Anyways.
Hey.
Oh, yeah. So, see y'all later.
See y'all later.
And let me know if you never want to see Walker again, or if I should invite him back on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that I can just be, a terrible person and very dislikable, so if you just never want to see me again, I won't hate you for it. I'm just kidding. But I love you guys, but I understand, honestly, I think Kanaju just does just as well or better solo than with other people. But even if you didn't enjoy my company, be open to other speakers as well, because there is a community. I know sometimes it feels like there aren't a lot of people playing No Man's Sky, but the people who do play are just the best people, and they're so enthusiastic about the game. So be open to other speakers in the future, even if you didn't like my commentary.
That's a good point. And thank you for being my guinea pig, my very first co-host / guest.
I'm honored. I appreciate you asking me here. I was happy to be here.
Yeah, I figure you're pretty much an expert. Anyways, this outro's been going for quite a while now, and I don't know where you are, so I can't shoot you. So
exactly.
Walker.
No. I got away. That's the end of the story. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I better get away too. I'm running away from my responsibilities as I speak. I'm gonna go hide in my office. I'll see you all on the next episode. Bye.